I see in the mirror. The past has my number, the future's unclear. I try to numb it, forget all the pain. Still I catch my breath at the fragrance of grace. Beautiful wildflowers, no one to impress. Without even trying, they're perfectly dressed. The birds of the air composing their song, not even anxious if they have a home. Worries cost me so much. I guess I'm just learning to trust like a wildflower. Made in your image, no one to impress. Without even trying, I'm perfectly dressed. Here for a moment, composing my song. And I have a heart.
Good morning. Would you stand and sing with us?
Tries to roll over my bones. When sorrow comes to steal the joy I own. When brokenness and pain is all I know, I won't be shaken. I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Shame no longer has a place to hide. I am not a captive to the lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. I won't be shaken. I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. There's power that can break off every chain. There's stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love.
Gonna be afraid every time I face the waves. I don't wanna be afraid. I don't wanna be afraid. And I don't wanna fear the storm just because I hear it roar. I don't wanna fear the storm. I don't wanna fear the storm. Peace be still. Say the word and I will set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. Peace be still, you are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. I'm not gonna be afraid, 'cause these waves are only waves. I'm not gonna be afraid. Oh, I'm not gonna be afraid. And I'm not gonna fear the storm. You are greater than its roar. Oh, I'm not gonna fear the storm. Oh, I'm not gonna fear it all.
Trust even in valleys. Your presence is enough when I feel the shaking. Oh, I will stand my ground. Your presence is enough. You are with me. Father, you're for me, and fear will never conquer me. I belong to Jesus. I'm never alone. I'm never abandoned. Fear you'll never conquer me. I belong to Jesus. When I feel the pressure, I won't run away, even in tension. Your presence is enough when I'm in the mystery. Oh, I will stand my ground. My God, you are enough. You are with me. Father, you're for me. You'll never conquer me. I belong to Jesus. I'm never alone. I'm never abandoned. Fear you'll never conquer me. I belong to Jesus. When the rain fell, when the floods came, when the wind blew, I was okay. You were right there. You're in every step I take. When the night falls, when my heart aches, if I stumble, I will not break. You'll be right there. You're in every step I take. When the rain fell, when the floods came, when the wind blew, I was okay. You were right there. You're in every step I take. You're my shepherd. You're my keeper, my provider, my protector. You surround me. You're in every step I take. You're the goodness. You're the constant. You're my first love and my future. You surround me. You're in every step I take. You are with me. Father, you're for me. Fear will never conquer me. I belong to Jesus. I'm never alone. I'm never abandoned. And fear you'll never conquer me. I belong to Jesus. 'Cause even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. You are with me. Father, you're for me. Fear you'll never conquer me. I belong to Jesus. I'm never alone. I'm never abandoned. Fear you'll never conquer me. I belong to Jesus. God, we love you. We thank you for today. We thank you for being here with us. That your kingdom is here. It is alive and it is real. Your peace is here with us today. So God, we love you. We thank you. In your son's name we pray. Amen. You can have a seat.
Hey, it's a great weekend to be around here, a Memorial Day weekend, and lots of things happening. But it's also a time that we really, really need to reflect upon the real meaning of Memorial Day. It was established in order for us to remember those individuals, men and women in our armed forces who have paid the ultimate price for our freedom. In 12 major armed conflicts in the last 248 years, over 1,197,000 men and women have paid that ultimate price. And that's something to be grateful for, to reflect upon. In fact, there's one special table out in the atrium that you might stop by and walk by. It's the Missing in Action POW table that kind of walks you through the whole reason and purpose for that table and that setting to be there. So just stop and reflect upon that. But I also want to thank those who are currently involved in our armed forces, to say thank you for your service. Thank you for being that individual who takes our freedom very seriously. So I would love here, small theater, reverie, even those of you at home, you may be watching this all by yourself. Go ahead and stand up. I mean, and accept our applause. So anyone involved in the armed forces right now, here, small theater, reverie, please stand. Let us say thank you for your service. We love you guys. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. God bless you.
I want to take a minute and talk about the Cancer Crush 5K that's coming up. It's on June 10th, and for those of you who don't know about this, Cancer Hope is this amazing ministry that really does so much to help encourage and support and pray for those that are battling cancer. This Cancer Crush, this 5K walk run, I'm a walker.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
Not a runner. But it's just a chance to just support them in person and financially by signing up. You can sign up for that literally right up to the day of the event, the moment. But if you sign up this weekend, you can get a really cool Cancer Crush t-shirt. You can sign up online, signup.com, or just walk out in the atrium. Bob and Dave and some others are out there and will gladly sign you up. We would love for you guys to be a part of that.
There's always got to be a Bob and a Dave.
That's always
somewhere.
Dave and Bob.
Dave and Bob, yeah. So go see Dave and Bob, and they will help you. That's cool. I love that.
That's quick.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, this is also actually the conclusion of our series called Cars, Chairs, and Children, and we're talking about cars today. So we decided, hey, when Charlie asked us to be kind of the team, I thought my eyes lit up, your eyes lit up. Are you kidding me? This is the perfect weekend for us because we both love cars. So we threw together an impromptu cruise in. Some of you have already participated. Some more will be coming in for the 11 o'clock service. So thank you. Make sure as you leave, you go out and check out the cool cars and talk to the individuals about their cars. They would love to tell you about their car, I'm sure. So check it out, and hey, after I teach here in a little bit, that'll be my first stop. So I know we normally kind of hang out in the atrium and talk to people, but I'm going to make my way out there as well. So maybe if you want to chat with me, you'll find me out with the cars after the service. But I want to talk a little bit about the whole thing with cars and parking. So yes. Saul, one of his responsibilities on staff is to oversee our parking team. So, Saul, tell us a little bit about that, your role.
Thanks,
so the heat can go towards him and not towards me.
The parking team, it's a great team. It's a grand and glorious team. We have 2 volunteers. So it's mostly Tim, who's over here, myself, Corey. If anybody's interested in joining, make sure you track me down. But it's a good group of people.
So if somebody says, hey, I want to be a part of that, I'd love to receive criticism. I'm a good PR person, so how could they come and what are you looking for? What type of a person and how do they sign up?
We're looking for thick skin, for starters, okay? No, but and without being too corny, smile and wave. We need you to smile and wave. That's another qualifier. This is literally the first people interaction that are guests that you get when you come onto the parking lot. And so we want you to be cheerful and have fun. And if you are interested, you can literally track me down or anybody you see in a blue shirt, our safety team. We really would. We'd love to help build that team. We'd love to have you help.
Now, the big question.
Yes.
Why do we have 10,000 parking cones out in our parking lot? What is the deal?
It's not 10,000.
Okay.
6,000.
6,000.
Okay.
So what is the deal? What's that all about? Tell us. Is there a plan?
There is a method to the madness. For those of you who are wondering what on earth is going on, We actually had, and I don't know if I'm saying a surveying company. We got some good counsel, we got some advice. We had them come out, they brought their traffic person out and I said, please help me fix this craziness, because in between services, you've all experienced it, it's nuts. And so he said, here's what you really need to do. He said, for such a short time, for 30 minutes in between and trying to move 1,000 people out, 1,000 people in, he said, you've got to be very strategic. So one of the things that we landed on is sectioning off part of the parking lot. So you've seen this group, the 9:30 comes in, and people are like, why the heck is that, over there? Why is that area coned off? It's coned off simply so that you can be closer to the exit, so that when you leave, you don't have as much traffic, and also so that the 11 o'clock crowd, when they come in, they've got 100 parking spots. There's 100 spots blocked off, so they can start parking there quicker. It really has, I promise you, it might not feel like it has streamlined that significantly, and we're continuing to work on that. But yeah, back to thanks and sorry. So, yeah.
That's great. So now we know there is a method to that. Now, I know when we leave, there's usually a officer that's there at the Washington Church exit. I know we've got the Dayton Christian egress as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Miami Township Police, the men and women serve there, also awesome. Thank you very, very much for those that do that. I want to make sure you guys know this, because not every weekend, but most weekends they're here. The police officers that are on schedule, that are serving on duty, they are not allowed to direct our traffic. So the men and women that come out and do that are coming here on their time. So just so you know, extra patience and extra smile and wave to them. Thank you for them. Thank you.
Yeah.
They get to do that. And also just a tip, don't be texting when the police officer's there. He got me last week. He counted 5 of you. Some of you, not anybody in this crowd, it's probably the 11 o'clock crowd.
Yeah, I'm sure the 11 o'clock service.
But yeah, and then one lady just right past him, so yeah. He's got a good sense of humor, the guy that was here, but yeah, pay attention. He jokingly said, I can still cite them, you know. So.
Ooh.
But no, they're great, and we love them, so please thank them, smile and wave when you get a chance.
Saul, thank you and your team. But before you leave, is there just any final words, any final challenge, anything that you'd like to say to us to help us maybe understand a little bit better?
Patience, practice patience, self-control. But yeah, I mean, really, just patience and self-control. You never know who's coming in. You never know the day or the week they've had. You don't know what they're going through. It could just be a mom trying to get the kids ready, trying to show up to church and just trying to make it here on a Sunday morning.
Hey, think about this. The alternative could be a parking lot full of spots where we get in and get out easily. This is a great problem to have. Don't you agree? Yeah, it's a great problem to have. So be grateful for that. Saul, final words.
I think that's it. Just again, be patient and practice that, and just remember to watch for that person and think about that person who's showing up here.
Like Heather.
Like Heather.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right.
Watch this video.
I found it! Yes! It's been a while since I made my way here on a Sunday morning, but at least I still knew the way. I bet the prodigal son had to ask for directions or something like that, but I knew my way. This is it though. From now on, every Sunday, I am showing up. This is the first day of a new thing, a whole life change. No more crushing fears, no more worries about whether I'm enough, no more anger issues, all peace and calm, and Jesus at the wheel. I can't believe somebody with that bumper sticker goes here. Do they know people can see that? Whoa, somebody with the other side bumper sticker goes here too? What happens if they sit by each other? Worlds colliding. This is taking a little while. I've got to get that coffee. I've got to check the kids in. I've got to get in there while they're still singing so it counts in the record books. Plus, that's the best part. Man, I'm looking a little tired, aren't I? And I've got to look good while I'm doing it. You know what they need out here? Those Christian chicken people. They know how to do lines. Maybe I'll just try again another week. A new life can start any day, right? What if they try to get me to change too much? I guess we're here. We made it this far. That's something.
All right. A thought just occurred to me. Those Christian chicken people don't work on Sundays. Great. It's all for your volunteer team. They know how to do it. So, hey, cars has always been something I've been absolutely fascinated with. I mean, as a kid, I remember growing up sitting on the porch with some of my friends, and we would try to identify every car that drove by the house, and we got really good at it. Now, I know as soon as I started telling a story, I thought, how boring does that sound, sitting on the porch of our house just watching cars? Trust me, things got a little more exciting after we started driving, and some of which I could probably tell you about, some of which I will not tell you about. But I've always been fascinated with cars. And I was reading someplace where that job is a lot harder today, of course, than it was back when I was counting cars and watching cars. One author I read said there's 25 million possible combinations of models, styles, colors, and just of cars. 25 million different scenarios of a possible car. So that's a little bit. Now, I do have a great grandson, believe it or not, and he also is a great admirer of cars, and his tastes were a lot more expensive than what my tastes were. When Teslas were first just a thing, I mean, they were out, but they just wasn't the most popular thing like electric cars are today. But this kid could spot a Tesla anywhere, and it was like, where? And there it is. And so for his 6th birthday, I thought how cool it would be to give him a special gift. So I asked my friend Aaron Matson, who's a SouthBrooker who drives a Tesla, I said, hey, would you meet me in the parking lot, and would you give my great-grandson Brody a special birthday gift? He said, I'd love to. So we met him at the parking lot, didn't tell Brody a thing about it until as soon as he pulls in the parking lot, Tesla! He spotted it, of course. And I said, well, that's your birthday present. I get it? No. No, it's not your car. You just take a ride in it. So he took a ride in it. This is the picture that shows the two of them together with Aaron and Brody. And what's funny is after we left, he said, I know what I want for my next birthday. What's that? Do you know someone who has a Lamborghini? I don't like the direction this thing is going. At some point, it's going to be a Formula One Indy car, I suppose. But so for his next birthday, I went on Amazon, got him a model Lamborghini, and we put it together and assembled it together, and he loved it. So I was able to kind of curb that desire down. But cars have always been super, super special with me. I've loved cars. My granddaughter Reagan and I brainwashed her early on because I've always loved Mustangs. So as a child, she was brainwashed into thinking that Mustangs are the best vehicle out there. So we developed a game called Stang Bang. It's our game. We made up the rules. She made up most of the rules. And so we got certain points for recognizing a Stang Bang first. You got bonus points if it's a Grabber Blue Stang Bang. More bonus points if it's a Grabber Blue convertible Stang Bang. More points if it's a Shawn Mendes Mustang, because she loves Shawn Mendes. And also because the antithesis to Stang Bangs were what we called the C word in Chevrolet. Not the Corvette, the other one. But we weren't allowed to say the name. In fact, if I'd said it in my message, she would dock me points for saying the name. So I'm not allowed to say the actual name for the C word. But that was, if we end up accidentally calling a C word a Stang Bang, we lost multiple points to the point that you could probably never win again. So we just had this game, and we loved it. We played it. To this day, we'll call out a Stang Bang, not quite as aggressively as we used to, but we loved doing those with cars. But then some things began to happen. And I look back on my life and I think, wow, cars represented a lot of things I enjoy, I have a passion about, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, we love things like these cruise-ins. But it also became kind of a symbol of something that began to be getting unhealthy in my life. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, which is an achiever. And I didn't know this at the time. I've read back and studied a lot about it now, but I began to see some unhealthy 3nesses in me that really was affecting a lot about my source of identity. And cars were not the cause of that. Cars just reflected my unhealthiness. And that was that my identity was based upon things and upon success and upon being significant. In fact, if you read about a 3, the unhealthy 3 can be very obsessive and very aggrandizing. They can also basically are so focused upon their value and their success that they can actually make things up in order to be more successful in my own eyes. And the fear of a 3 is that I would be insignificant or would be a failure. One author says, to cope with this fear, they look for ways to win in life, reassuring themselves that they are valuable. And that was me for a long, long time. My unhealthy 3 could be seen in my possessions, like cars and boats and things, and I became very obsessive with those and controlling of those, in the way I led a church, in my attitude towards just a lot of things in life, athletics. My unhealthy 3 was kind of revealing itself in so many ways. I had rules for our cars. I mean, very strict rules. Clean rules. You don't eat in my car. And again, I kind of still feel that way today, but I don't obsess over it today. But you don't wipe the fog off of windows with your hands. You don't write on the fog or the steam on your windows. I remember a time when Reagan had a friend with her, and we were driving somewhere, and it was really cold outside. I had the heater going, and so the windows were fogging up there in the back. And her friend started to do something and wipe the fog off the window, and Reagan whispered, "Don't do that. Don't do that." And there's a part of me that says, yes, I have raised Reagan correctly. But then there's another part of me that felt very ashamed and very sorry that she felt like that was a rule that she had to keep her friend from doing, because somehow I would be upset with that. And so when my wife and I got married up in Columbiana, Ohio, I parked my car 5 miles away in a county fair parking lot that was going on at the time, thousands of cars. The only person who knew about it was my best man, and I would have literally killed him probably if he had shared with anyone, because I didn't want people, because I heard they were going to do something to my car, write on it, and I don't know if they were going to put stuff around it, but I thought, no. So I parked 5 miles away to protect my car from anyone doing something on it. And so we used my best man's car. I didn't care what they did to his car. And then God began to really do some things with my heart. A couple of significant events in my life. One was a global leadership summit that I attended. And I remember hearing a speaker say that the pace at which I am doing the work of God is destroying the work of God in me. And I thought, that's me. I began to read. One of the books I began reading was a book called Margin by Dr. Richard Swenson. And I began even to teach that because it was so relevant to my life. And the best way to really put something into your life is to teach it to others, because as you do that, you begin to kind of continue to develop those habits in yourself. And Margin talked about obsessions in life, and it talked about how we hold on to things so tightly, and we have such a tight grip upon things, and they become our masters, and they become the ones that lead us. And he talked about idols and altars, and some of you have heard me mention this before, and that became so very real to me, that so many things in life can become an idol or they can become an altar. And I've remembered that ever since. And I knew that some of the things in my life, they're not wrong things, they just had become my idols. And I worshiped them. And they controlled me. They controlled my attitudes. They controlled my obsessions. Because somehow that was going to make me feel valuable or make me feel significant, even though they couldn't do that. This author said that these possessions make great servants, but terrible masters. And that's true. And so God began doing this work in my life. And I want to ask you, is there something in your life? It may not be cars. To some of you, like this whole idea of cars is like, they're a means of transportation. There are 4 tires on the ground, and as long as it's reliable and safe, I don't care what it looks like. I don't care how shiny the wheels are. I don't get out and then wipe off the dust off the car, and I take care. I don't care. But to others, even those of you who say that, there's still something in your life that is maybe controlling you. When we think about self-control problems, it's really when you're doing something that you really want to stop, but you can't. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be immoral or illegal. It can just be anything that is controlling you as opposed to you controlling it. There's an enormous amount of people, we think about the classic addictions of alcohol and drugs and spending and gambling and sexual addictions and overeating and undereating, but don't stop there. There's also so many of the socially acceptable addictions that are just as damaging to our identity. They can be anything from the way we speak, the way we view our physical bodies, the way our careers, our emotions, our anger and our anxiety. All of us, we may not have the enormous, huge self-control problems, but we all have something in our life that is potentially controlling us. So what's the answer to that? The Apostle Paul gives us a great solution to this problem. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 23 through 27. I do all of this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. Now, I want you to remember that phrase. I'm not going to have a slide towards the end, but I want you to remember that because we're going to come back to that, and you'll see how that all fits in so well with what he's saying. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way so that you get the prize. Everyone who competes, actually is a word for wrestling, everyone who wrestles in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I preach to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. Now, the word self-control really isn't used in this passage, in this text, but it's implied. In verse 25, when he says it goes into strict training, the word there literally means panta, all things self-rule. An athlete, and he just uses an athlete. You could use any example. You may say, I don't like all these sports illustrations. Well, Paul was just using something that he knew people could relate to. So what do you relate to? It may not be athletics, but you relate to something. So something that maybe has a potential of controlling you. He says, I go into strict training so that I would control self-rule in all panta, all things. What does that mean? He talks about runners who run for the prize, wrestlers who compete for the crown or for the wreath, boxers who don't just beat the air, they aim for the chin. I boxed one time. That tells you a little bit about how my career in boxing went. One time. And it was not a match. It was at college, and a friend of mine, in fact, my roommate, much smaller than I was, had his gloves out, was going, he got an extra pair of gloves, and let's just play around. So we just played around. He caught me one time in the chin, and I saw stars. I said, well, I found out one thing I'm not good at, so I'm not going there. So, so the boxers aim for the chin. He says, I beat my body. It's not talking about self-flagellation. He's not hurting himself. What it means is I wear down resistance in my body. I wear down anything that's resisting me. In Luke 18, Jesus tells a story about a widow who goes before a judge to plead her case. And it says he kept going after, and he kept ignoring. She kept going after, kept going after. She was wearing down his resistance until he finally listened to her plea. If you are a parent of adolescent children, you understand what that means. How a child can wear you down by asking the same question over and over and over and over. Buy this, let me do this, till finally you say, okay, whatever, go play in the traffic. I don't know. Paul says, I wear down the resistance of anything that's going to hold me back from achieving the crown or the prize. What is the crown? What's the prize that's so important to Paul? According to American Psychologists Association's annual stress in America survey, which I've never taken and never heard of before, lack of willpower is frequently cited as the people's top reason for not achieving their goals. So what's holding us back? Many people would say, well, you need more willpower. You just need to be stronger, more willpower. You've got cake and ice cream and donuts on one side, and you know that you've got a competition of some sort of athletic, or you're just trying to diet, and you see all these things on one side. How do I say no to that when my emotions say, I want that so badly, whatever it is? You say, well, we just need more willpower. In fact, the Greek Stoics, that's what they taught. They said that the secret to self-control was willpower. In fact, they believed that willpower was just simply mind over emotion. So because the emotions were part of the body, which they believed was bad, the body was bad, the mind was good, so therefore the mind has to have control over the bad body emotions, because that's what they believe. So mind over, and we still do that today, just to say, just don't do it, just stop. Even organized religion, at least what I grew up in, a lot of it was just, here are the rules, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, or stop doing this, stop doing this, stop doing, and then to add a little caveat on it, you need a little hellfire fear in your life, so that don't do this or you're going to go to hell. So that creates more willpower. So is that the answer? Willpower? No, it's not. There's a book by the name of Willpower Doesn't Work by Benjamin Hardy. Listen to one of his quotes. Let's be honest. You've tried to improve your life 1,000,000 times, and 1,000,000 times you've come back to the drawing board. Frustrated. You've tried willpower to kick a habit but fell back into old patterns. You've tried New Year's resolutions, but by February, everything reverts back to how it was the year before. You set big, life-changing goals, but seem to find yourself far short of them despite hard work. After enough failure, it's easy to conclude that you're the problem. You must not have what it takes, the grit, the inner strength, the willpower. Maybe you should just settle for the life that you have. Just give up. You don't have it. Well, God's Word has a much, much different answer. Much different. Every part of you is made in the image of God. Your mind, your will, your emotions, all in the image of God. And even though the Greeks taught that the emotions were lower because they were part of the body was bad, the spirit was good, so the mind had to have dominated over the body. But the reason you have emotions is because you're made in the image of God, and God has emotions. Now, certainly, we all are tainted by sin, so we have to understand that there's a temptation within all of us, even with the way we think or the way that we feel. So we can't totally trust emotions and will. So that's where this other entity comes in, and that's where Paul is speaking. The secret of self-control. Look at the athlete again. Do they not want the donuts or the ice cream or the cake? Yes. But they don't do that. Why? Because there's something more important to them. The prize. The prize. Self-control is not a matter of the will, it's a matter of the heart. Setting the heart focused upon those higher things. Dr. Tim Keller, who, by the way, just passed away last week, and I know we've referred to him a lot and here at SouthBrook. He's a tremendous author and speaker and teacher. In his book, Making Sense of God, he describes the heart. He says, the great human struggle is not between mind and body, but takes place within the heart. And he calls the heart here the hidden core of self that could respond to or reject the will and love, God's love or not. So there's something within each one of us that's the core of our being that has the potential of accepting love or rejecting love, has accepting either the mind and the will or rejecting it. Jesus says this. He says, where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. That's where the core of your being is also. Dr. Keller also, I was listening to one of his podcasts. He tells the story about Jacob back in Genesis 29. This is a very complex, long story, but I'm going to really, really summarize this. There's a lot of stuff I'm going to leave out very intentionally, but if you want to read the whole story, go back to Genesis 29 and previous chapters and just read the whole story. It's really amazing. But there's a verse in here that I'd missed for so long, and here's how it applies. So Jacob is, his father tells him, Isaac says, I want you to go over to this other foreign country and look for this guy by the name of Laban, and he has some daughters. I want you to marry one of his daughters. Jacob says, okay. So he heads out, he finds Laban, and he sets his eyes, he sees Rachel. And he is immediately stricken. Rachel is the one. I want to marry Rachel. Well, there's a problem here. Laban had an older daughter, Leah. And according to their culture, you couldn't marry your younger daughter until the older daughter was married. And the Bible very carefully describes both Leah and Rachel. And as you read that description, you'll understand why Jacob wasn't interested in Leah. He wanted Rachel. And so he said, no, I want Rachel. And no, well, Leah's got to go first. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll work for you, for Rachel. And so the Bible tells us that Jacob worked for 7 years to have Rachel's hand. Now, the story doesn't end there. Unfortunately, Laban kind of pulls a trick on Jacob, but I'm not going to go into that part of the story. But he worked for 7 years for Laban, and Laban was referred to as a hard man. So you're working 7 years, not days, not weeks, 7 years for a hard man for the hand of his daughter Rachel. And maybe you had an interview that said, was that hard? How difficult was that for you to work for 7 years? And here's what Jacob would say. It wasn't hard at all. In fact, in verse 20, so Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. No, it wasn't hard at all. Why, didn't it take a lot of willpower? Jacob, how could you? No, it wasn't willpower at all. It was, Dr. Keller calls it was joy power. That's what his heart was focused upon. That's what he was passionate about. He wanted Rachel so badly that 7 years of hard work and hard labor for a man that he didn't really necessarily completely, totally trust or respect, but he was willing to do that. Why? Because his prize, his focus, his desire was that Rachel would be his wife, and 7 years was like a few days because of his love for her. So if you set your heart on certain things, then that's the secret of self-control. Setting your heart on the one thing that will put into order all the other things. So what is that? What's that look like? Paul tells us, this goes back to our passage earlier. I do all of this. Now stop right there. Paul says, I do all of it. If you read back in the previous verses and chapters, you'll find that Paul went through a lot of hard stuff too in his life. He went through beatings, and he went through shipwrecks, and he went through, all kinds of stuff. But he says, I do all of this for the sake of the gospel. What is that? The gospel is that good news, that message into his heart and life that even though you are a damaged and fragile and imperfect person, that my love for you and my desire for you is so deep that I went to the cross for you and I died for you, and my death and my resurrection now gives you a whole new life, and now you can live a victorious life. You don't have to fear anything. You can know that those things that have shackled you before, like we've been singing about this morning, are all broken because of the love of God. That my love for you is so deep, so powerful that's going to be the motivator of your life. So Paul says, that's what I set my heart upon. My identity is based not on what I own, not on the cars that I drive, not on the job that I have, not on the family that I have, not on the looks that I have or have not. My identity is based upon the fact that my God loves me unconditionally. And unhealthy 3 needed to hear that. So that began a transition in my life. Now, the second thing that Paul says, for the sake of the gospel, and so that I could share in the blessings of the gospel. What does that mean? Paul was so focused upon the prize. He said, I want to make sure that, as you read the end of that passage again, I don't want to be disqualified. Now, what does that mean? It's not that he was going to lose everything that he'd worked for. He said, I want to make sure that the things that come out of my life and my mouth and the actions that I have are congruent, are consistent with each other, that I'm not violating, practicing what I preach. I want to make sure that people around me, what they hear from my mouth and the gospel that I share with them and the truths that I share with them, that my life is consistent with that. That's what I want to have. I don't want to miss out on that. So that other people are messed up because they have heard me say one thing and see me do something else. And those kind of things are very, very important to me as well. So when Paul, if you look at his life prior to his acceptance of Christ, he was a Pharisee. He worked very hard at his image. A lot of people think he was a 1. I think he might have had at least a 3 wing, because I could really relate with him as well. But he worked very hard at his image and doing all the right things as a Pharisee. And now look at his life now. He is learning how to self-control because his prize, his focus is upon the gospel and also sharing the gospel, this koinonia, this fellowship with others. And that's the beautiful thing about how things can become altars as opposed to idols. So that cars and boats and houses and everything else can all now become used of the Lord. Now, I will tell you this. I'm still the same person I've always been. So when I share my truck and my boat, they are clean. They are detailed. But it's not an obsession. It's not a reflection upon my identity. It's because I like clean cars. And I like clean boats. And so when I serve Strip Church Ministry or City Lights and we haul furniture or do things for other people, you're going to get to ride in a clean truck or a clean car. One of my granddaughters, Dakota, she was 8 or 9 years of age at the time. We'd gone through the Christian chicken place. And we'd gotten a meal there. And I don't know if they still have them or not, but they used to have those packets of ketchup that you could either tear off the end and pour, or you can pull up the other end and dip. I don't know if they still have those or not, but she was eating in the car, first of all. And so she's working on her ketchup, and she kind of I think she maybe tore the end off. She was trying to figure out how to get this other part off, and she squeezed this thing so hard that it was like a hand grenade of ketchup. And I'm driving, all of a sudden I am plastered with ketchup. And the beautiful thing about this is the look on her face, because she thought, my family had really seen the change in the way I viewed things, but I think there's still this wonder, is this really changed for good or not? So she's looking at me like, am I dead? Am I? I pulled the truck over. We got out some napkins. I said, Dakota, it's okay. It's okay. It'll clean up. And it did. It did. One final story. Look at the life of Jesus. And by the way, one of the core value verses that I have adopted that helps me with this idol and altar thing is Colossians 3:17. And I want you to see it because I want to share that with you. Because trying to make things idols, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. It wears you down. It's hard. But the joy of allowing things to be altars and to see how God can use them is the blessing of the gospel that Paul talks about. It's enjoyable. It's beautiful. And so this passage became one of my core values. Let every detail in your life, words, actions, anything, panta, all things, whatever, be done in the name of the Master Jesus, thanking God our Father, and may I add, with joy power, every step of the way. So finally, look at the life of Jesus. You ever think about Jesus and self-control? Did he have self-control? Did he learn self-control? He was tempted on all points as we are. How did Jesus provide the discipline of self-control in his own life? Look at Hebrews chapter 12, and I'm just going to read this to you. Listen very carefully. Since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside everything that hinders us. Remember that idea of wearing down any resistance? Paul says, or the Hebrew writer says the same thing in Hebrews 12 here. Everything that hinders us, that so easily entangles us, and let us run with perseverance, not willpower, but perseverance, the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So did Jesus practice willpower? No, it was joy power. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross. What did Jesus not have before the cross that gave him the perseverance to endure the cross? What was the joy set before? What was the Rachel in his eyes that allowed him to endure all that hard road of being beaten and persecuted and abandoned and forsaken, and then finally physically nailed to a cross? What was the joy set before him? What was the Rachel in his eye? What did he not have then that he has now? He had the Father. I mean, even though there was a time where he was forsaken by the Father, but he had the Father. He had the power over all mankind. He had all authority given to him. You know what he didn't have? You or me. That was the joy. That was his Rachel. You were his Rachel. I was his Rachel. And that becomes the source of our identity. And when we have that identity, that I am a beloved son of the Most High God with supreme value and worth, just as I am today, or you're a beloved daughter of the Most High God with supreme value and worth, just as you are today, and yet God loves you so much, he's not going to allow you to stay the same. He wants you to grow. He wants you to become more like him. But when we have that as our prize, that gospel, and sharing the gospel, sharing this life with others, that is the secret. That's not willpower. That's joy power. Amen. That's joy power. This is a big weekend for a lot of people, for our family, for many of you as well. It's graduation later on this afternoon. Dayton Christian will have their commencement service in here. Our granddaughter will be one of the ones standing on the stage being celebrated. Lots of parties, lots of grad parties going on. Lots of other schools and colleges are having their commencements and their services all throughout these last week or so and days. And it's just a big weekend. And I think even this message of where's your identity, where's your source of identity, how can you develop this secret of self-control in your life so it affects Ponta, all things in your life, all things. Maybe this is a good time for us to just share with our graduates. So if you're a graduate, if you're graduating from a high school, college, career center, anything at all that you're graduating from that's academic related or whatever, would you just stand? And if you're in a small theater, reverie, again, even at home, I'd love to just have a final prayer over you and just thank you for everything. This is the early service, so probably most of you are going to be in the 11 o'clock service. Do we have any graduates in here? Oh, yes, okay. We do. Remain standing if you will. I just want to pray and then we'll be dismissed and have a great day. I'll see you out in the cruise-in parking lot. God, thank you so much for these men and women who are entering a different time, a different chapter of their life. And whether it be high school, college, kindergarten, there's all kinds of things that are in front of us. There's a curve in the road, and sometimes it's hard to see around that curve. Where are you leading? God, I pray your anointing, your blessing upon their lives. May they acknowledge that, Father, that you are the most important root of their identity, and help them, Father, to place that focus upon you, because, Lord, when we put you as the center of our heart and the focus of our heart, then we learn how to demonstrate self-control in all areas of our life. So God, may this message be applicable to their lives as well as all of us, and we give you all of this in Jesus' name. And everyone who agreed said, amen. God bless you. Have a great weekend.
Not hidden. There's never been